Welcome to our presentation. Today we're going to be talking about seismic communication in elephants. I'm Naja Malik.
And I'm Christy Metzger.
So today we're going to be talking about seismic communication and what it is, infrasonic communication, ultrasonic communication, and the differences between them.
We're then going to go into detail about seismic communication in elephants and also discuss implications and real-world events associated with this.
So here you can see an illustration of an animal frequency hearing ranges. You can see that the human is in the yellow range, and that's between 20 kilohertz and 20 hertz. On the top of the spectrum, you can see that above those frequencies, bats and dolphins can hear in these ranges, and on the bottom, you can see that blue whales and elephants can hear in these ranges. So we're going to start at ultrasonic communication. Ultrasonic communication is used by bats, dolphins, mice, and some insects. And once again, these frequencies are above 18 kilohertz. So humans can hear only 20 kilohertz. So anything above that is undetectable by humans. And these are very high sound frequencies.
Following ultrasonic communication is that of infrasonic communication, and these represent sound frequencies below 20 hertz. So again, these cannot be detected by the human ear since the hearing range for humans is between 20 kilohertz and 20 hertz. Elephants in particular use this form of communication to communicate up to distances of 20 miles, and other animals also utilize this form of communication, including blue whales, giraffes, rhinos, and alligators. And once again, these are very low sound frequencies. Seismic communication is a form of infrasonic communication and is also referred to as vibrational communication. Seismic communication is represented by sound frequencies between 20 and 40 hertz, and essentially this is the process of transmitting information through different mechanical vibrations along substrates like water or the earth. Seismic cues are generated through percussion or impacts on the Earth's surface via acoustic waves or sound waves, which couple with the Earth's sub-Rayleigh waves. And I'm going to go into a bit of detail about what these are on the following slide. These can also produce very short or very long distance seismic cues that are capable of traveling up to hundreds of miles. So in this image here, we can see a comparison of a man jumping to that of an elephant stomping into the ground. You can see the first layer below their feet is referred to as ambient seismic noise, which is just another term for background noise. The pink layer below the background noise represents the Rayleigh waves I previously mentioned, and you can see that for the man jumping, the Rayleigh waves cannot be easily differentiated from that of the background noise. But for the elephant, however, the Rayleigh waves show a greater range of seismic fluctuation, which suggests that when the elephant is receiving these seismic cues, they are able to differentiate between the seismic rumbles and the background noise.
So seismic signal generation is basically how elephants are able to generate these sounds that will travel over airwaves or seismic waves. So when they travel through the air, they're high amplitude, low frequency vocalizations, and these waves are called acoustic waves. When they propagate over the ground, we call these waves seismic waves. That's what we're interested in. So these vocalizations that travel through seismic waves can propagate over very long distances depending on the substance or the substrate on the ground, so the soil and the geological structures of the habitats. They also use coupling mechanisms, so they use both of them at the same time. So they will have vocalizations that travel through the air and through the ground along different surfaces. These are two types of vocalizations that we're going to look at. The stereotypical one is the high frequency trumpet squeal. So these are what we know elephant sounds to be. They only travel about 2 miles and they sound like this. So these waves are airborne waves, or these are sounds that travel through the air. Low frequency rumbles will travel along the ground through Rayleigh waves, and they travel up to 20 miles. They sound like this.
Next, we're going to discuss the behaviors associated with seismic signal detection. So elephants tend to orient in the direction of the seismic signal that they are detecting, and they typically elicit watchful behaviors. And these watchful behaviors are indicative of distress signals that are sensed through the seismic cues they are receiving through the substrate. Elephants can sense different seismic cues through smelling. They can freeze in place, they scan their environment, and they can also lean forward on their front legs and their trunks in order to receive these vibrational signals, which we are going to get into more detail in the following slides.
So here we can see a picture of male bonded group behavior. Males typically use their trunks to decipher these seismic signals. As you can see here, their trunks are pressed on the ground, and they're also using their 4 feet. So one of their front feet is placed ahead of the other, and they're pressing one further into the ground to be able to read the signal. This is bimodal communication or bimodal detection of the signals. One interesting thing that they do here, you can see that there's a bunch of males kind of positioned at different compass angles. This is so they can decipher the direction of the signal and the localization of the signal. So they can basically make a decision about which route to take after drinking from the watering hole. The final decision to be made as to where they're going to go is made by the dominant male. So you can see he's also on the side, also pressed with his front foot on the ground and his trunk. And he's also got his ears out. So he's doing both air listening and ground listening. So we're going to talk a little bit more about the localization of sound. So this is a picture of a male responding to an estrus call. So an estrus call is a female. When she's ovulating, she'll give a sound so the male can come to her and they can mate. This is a really important call, and you can see it from the front top picture. He's hasn't heard the sound. In the second picture in the middle, he's heard the sound and he places himself perpendicular to the sound. This allows for intraoral distance calculations. So basically, the sound travels from one ear to the next, and the distance between when the sound arrives at the second ear is will tell the elephant how far the signal is coming from, and also where the signal is coming from. So a better localization, and they can hear up to a signal coming from up to 100 miles.
Next, we're going to discuss the two ways that elephants can detect seismic signals, and these are through bone conduction and also through a somatosensory pathway. Now, bone conduction heavily relies on the foot bones, and vibrations tend to travel from the toe tips of the foot bones up the leg bones, into the shoulder bones, and straight into the ossicles of the middle ear. From here, the vibrational signals travel to the cochlea, and then this signal is emitted to the auditory cortex where the signal is processed. The somatosensory pathway makes use of the elephant's trunk as well as a digital cushion which is found in the heel of their foot. Vibration sensitive cells, known as Pacinium corpuscles, tend to be located in clusters at the bottom of the foot as well as the trunk, and these nerves receive seismic communication waves and rumbles throughout the Earth's surface and send these signals through the afferent nerves to the somatosensory cortex where they are processed. So, the somatosensory pathway in seismic listening can be differentiated from the bone conduction pathway strictly through use of those Pacinium corpuscles found in clusters in the trunk as well as the foot of the elephant. In this photo, we can see that the ears of the elephant are relaxed, which suggests that the listening mechanism he or she is using is not acoustic. So they're not listening through the airwaves. He's using his trunk that's pressed into the ground to detect those vibrational and seismic cues. The Pacinium corpuscles in the trunk allow the elephant to process these vibrational cues and send them up into the somatosensory and auditory cortex. And in order to get a great grand picture of exactly where this signal is coming from, the elephant will change its positions at approximately 45-degree angles in compass-like orientations in order to assess the direction, again, of where that signal is coming from and where they will depart to in order to either flee that signal or follow the signal.
So, when the elephant uses bimodal sensory pathways, they're using both bone conduction and somatosensory listening. So, as we can see here, which is really cool, this elephant is using a bimodal pathway. So, they're using not only bone conduction, but also somatosensory pathways. So, you can see his trunk is pressed down, and that indicates somatosensory. The bone conduction pathway, you can see that he's using it because the toe tips are pressed on the ground, and this allows the conduction of the signal to go up the toe bones, into the foot bones, up the leg bones, to the shoulder bones, and then into the middle ear bones or the ossicles. And this is how um, two modes of listening are happening at one time. And it's pretty cool that we can see this through this picture pretty clearly. So the bone conduction pathway is really great because it also give not only does it give information about where the signal is, but how far away it is and also which direction it's coming from. So this allows for a summation of how the frequencies are being temporally modulated. And this way the elephant can calculate exactly how far away either a mate is or a lost family member or an orphan, or how close or far a threat may be.
Now we're briefly going to touch on those Pacinian corpuscles, which are located in the fatty cushion or the digital cushion of the foot. And as we discussed in class, Pacinian corpuscles resemble onion-shaped somatosensory mechanoreceptors, and they shift based on vibrational movement or pressure, which ultimately sends nerve signals to the brain and tells the elephant what its next move is. Elephants tend to respond to seismic signals by standing in place and shifting their weight back and forth onto the tips of their toes and their heels while pushing the anterior portion of their feet into the ground. The foot posture of the elephant tends to correlate to regional distributions of Pacinian corpuscles, and research suggests that this is a great example of how they're involved in seismic signal detection.
So, how elephants encode these seismic signals is pretty interesting as well. Their ossicles are one of the largest amongst any mammals or terrestrial animals, and they're actually 7 times the mass of human ossicles. Their malleus is also a lot bigger compared to proportional to the other ossicles. So they're hypertrophied, and this is an adaptation that allows the joints to be more flexible, which allows for finer discrimination between frequency noises. And also, this cochlear, this kind of fine discrimination of their ossicles is similar to reptilian cochleas, who are also they reptilians also have very keen sensitivity to differences in vibrations. This is also similar to relatives of elephants, such as dugongs and manatees.
This is just a visual picture of what Naja was just talking about. On the left, you can see the hypertrophied malleus identified. And just by looking at this photo, you can instantly tell that the malleus of an elephant is immensely larger than that of of a human. Now, finally, we're going to discuss some implications and real world events associated with seismic communication in elephants. So, seismic communication is very, very interesting, and studying elephants has allowed us to gain some insight on their ability to detect vibrational movements based on earthquakes, tsunamis, and volcanoes. There was a news article released in 2004 when a tsunami hit Thailand and Sri Lanka that documented elephants moving to higher ground before the tsunami hit. And on the right hand side, you can see here a little clip from a news article that um, is the story of an 8-year-old girl named Amber who actually survived the tsunami because the elephant she was riding along the beach was able to sense these seismic waves in the ground before the tsunami hit and actually moved inland and upward away from the water. Another implication and real world event that's important to consider is noise growing from the human population, roads and mining, and other industrial enterprises can cause interferences and reduce the ability for elephants and different animals that use seismic communication to discriminate between vibrational signals. And these can disrupt a lot of important things like mating signal calls and also locating individuals that may have gotten lost from the herd, as well as knowing when to flee from predators and localizing where a threat may or may not be.
So thanks for listening to our presentation. If you have any questions, please place them on Blackboard, and we hope you enjoyed our presentation on seismic communication in elephants. Thanks.